deathly silence comes screaming in some galaxies. 3 days ago, Elias Vorn woke up in the wreckage of a cargo ship, the sole survivor of a failed rescue team. Only his own breath echoed through the void. The ship's artificial gravity had broken, but to him, such things were mere details. He had faced death countless times, but this was different. A scream still echoed in his mind, a woman's voice, foreign yet familiar, alive yet desperate. When the High Council summoned Elias on a political courtesy mission, they had said, "Protect the Queen, then retreat." The true purpose of these missions was never fully explained, but Elias's instincts whispered to him that something much deeper lay ahead. Alira Vaishal was the youngest queen of the Aurelian Empire. She was 27. With her golden eyes and silver hair, she resembled an ancient goddess, amidst the intrigues unfolding within the palace walls. She felt more like prey than a queen. 3 days before Coronation Day, a breach had occurred in the Royal Council. The palace's outer perimeter had been blown open, its guards destroyed. The Queen's only hope lay in the human guards the Federation would send. Humanity was still a subordinate species to the Aurelians, uncultured, crude, and uncontrolled. But when Alira looked into his eyes, she saw something else. Ili's eyes were dull, as if bathed in stardust, yet warm, wounded, yet determined. For the first time, the Queen didn't feel vulnerable while breathing in the same room. Footsteps echoed through the palace's marble corridors. Elias Vorn, commander of the guard, appears before Her Majesty Queen Alira Vaishal. Elias bowed his head slightly as he entered. He didn't bow. Looking at the Queen, he spoke. "You asked for me?" Alira gazed long at the man before her. His face bore the scars of battle, and a fresh wound on his chin, but he stood tall. He didn't bend. "Human," the Queen said, "you are our last hope. There are council members who despise you. But I think differently." Elias took a step closer. His tone was stern but measured. "I don't want you to be our hope. I want you to survive. The rest depends on the outcome of the battle." Alira smiled for the first time in that moment, and with that smile, fate changed. Later that night, Elias was summoned to a dark room in one of the palace's secret chambers. The summoner was Jara Tayan, the Queen's chief bodyguard. She held a hostile gaze toward Elias. "Human," Jara said, "are you aware of what's happening here? General Koresh Dravik is trying to eliminate the Queen, and they've placed you at his side as nothing more than a pawn. They're ready to use you." Elias stared without narrowing his eyes. "I won't be a pawn," he said, "but I'll burn the chessboard when necessary." Jara didn't know what to say to that answer. Her eyes wavered between respect and suspicion. That night, Elias wandered the corridors like a shadow. He sensed something was wrong. His instincts warned of an impending attack, and he was right. The north courtyard of the palace erupted in an instant. Shouts, screams, and then silence. When Elias rushed to the Queen, Alira had collapsed in tears on the throne room floor. A dead advisor beside her, the burning walls in the distance. "They want to kill me," Alira whispered. "Not the throne, but me." Without a second thought, Elias drew his weapon and looked at the Queen. "We will survive this," he said. "I promise." And in that moment, for the first time, Alira's eyes looked not at a soldier, but at a man. And for the first time, Alira's heart beat, not for a war, but for a woman, as the palace engulfed in flames. Alira grabbed Alira's arm and pulled her toward a dark passage. Each explosion shook with echoes echoing off the stone walls. The tunnel was dark, but Ilias's steps were steady. "This passage takes you beneath the palace," he said. "No one uses it. It's not on the maps." Alira hesitated. 1,000 questions coursed through her mind, but she asked none. Ilias's composure spoke louder than words. As they advanced, Jara Tayan appeared at the tunnel's mouth, covered in blood. Her hand went to her sword, then paused. Her eyes locked on Ilias. "One of us leaked information," she said softly. "Koresh knows our location." Elias bowed his head. "Who?" "Royal advisor Serix Val. I've questioned him. He works for Koresh. The palace is no longer safe." Silence rang. "What do we do?" Alira asked. Her voice wasn't that of a queen, but that of a heartbroken woman. Elias turned his gaze to her. His words were short but firm. "We will survive. Then we will reclaim your throne." Throughout their escape, Elias not only protected Alira, he showed her the true face of the galaxy. Which systems to trust, which doors to bribe, which never. All knowledge was gold. Elias was a soldier, yes, but he was also a philosopher of survival. One night, on the 7th day of their escape, they took shelter in an abandoned mining station. His eyes were fixated on the stars in the sky. Elias gazed silently at them. Alira sat down gently beside him. "Why are you here, Elias? Why would anyone risk so much for me?" Elias was silent for a moment. Then he answered, "On my planet, you risk everything to protect what you love, in war or in love." Alira took a deep breath. For her, Elias was no longer a soldier. A wall had fallen for him. Their next stop was one of the outer systems bases, where Ilias's old friend Arvin Tyrol was hiding. Arvin was the only person Elias trusted from the war. A broken droid clung to his shoulder, its eyes covered with artificial lenses, but he was still intelligent. "Why did you bring the queen to you in all this trouble?" he snapped. Elias replied, "Because she is stronger than her enemies think, and because I cannot allow them to kill her." Arvin shook his head, but finally agreed to help. "I will find you new identities, a ship, and a way forward. But hurry, Koresh's agents are everywhere." That night, Elias was alone. He was gazing at the stars on a peak at one of Arvin's bases. Alira came and sat silently beside him. A long silence fell. "Why didn't you bow to me the first day?" the queen asked. Elias turned to her without blinking. "Because I wasn't afraid, and because you should have seen that you shouldn't be either." Alira bowed her head. "I've always been alone, Elias. This throne, didn't belong to me. But there's something in your gaze that makes me feel like it belongs to me." And then lips moved. Alira. It was the first time the name had been spoken like that. There was no title, just her name. That night, no stars fell upon them, but the orbits of their two hearts were locked together. Irrevocably, when morning came, Koresh's assassination squad raided the station. The systems Arvin had installed bought time, but they weren't enough. Elias and Alira were forced to flee, but this time they weren't running. Their destination was clear, the heart of the Empire, and there, Ilias's fate would be written. After Koresh, Drovik raided Arvin's station. Ilias and Alira were forced to take a new route. This route led to the mining colonies around the moon. The area called Moonfire lay between all the abandoned outposts and harbored countless bandit groups. But there was a silver lining, a secret databank containing Koresh's financial traces. Elias and Alira boarded a mining ship under false pretenses. For the first time since leaving the palace, Alira hadn't concealed her face. Elias looked at her and smiled, saying, "You look like a queen, but that dusty jumpsuit makes you look even more real." Alira's response was soft. "No one knows who I really am except you, Elias. And I love that identity." When the ship entered Moonfire's territory, it was intercepted by a bandit group. Elias, with his wartime reflexes, disarmed the bandit leader. Alira, with her diplomatic acumen, earned the respect of the remaining guards. This strengthened their bond. Once they accessed the database, they tracked Koresh's financial movements. Through a program Arvin was still remotely controlling, Koresh was manipulating the Empire's weapons supply chain and building his own army through the council. But bringing this information to the palace was dangerous. Ilias's plan was clear. The public will see this information. Alira, if you want to stop Koresh, you must reclaim the throne. And this time, you will not only be queen, but a symbol. Alira swallowed. She was afraid, but Elias was beside her. He placed his hand on hers. I am ready, but you will be with me, won't you, until the end? And this time, it wasn't just an oath. It was a promise made from the heart. The evidence of Koresh's treachery was as sharp and cold as the freezing winds of Moonfire. With the help of Elias, Alira, and Arvan, he analyzed the information, infiltrated the broadcast systems, and crafted an expose that would resonate throughout the core systems. In the image, Alira was not a dethroned queen, but a leader presenting the truth to her people. Her voice remained unwavering, her gaze resolute. I am Alira Vash. I speak the name of the man who injected poison into the heart of my empire, Koresh Dravik. He orchestrated war, bloodshed, and treachery from behind the scenes. But darkness will no longer suffice. The broadcast had a profound impact. Rebellions broke out first in the peripheral systems. Former commanders chose to fight alongside Alira, but Koresh would not back down. I want her alive, Koresh said. Both her and that tainted soldier of her race. Koresh had taken control of the royal palace and established a puppet council, but his true power lay in his control of the Galactic Legion. Alira and Elias planned their final steps to regain the throne. Arvan kept his word and found them an old royal assault ship, the Promise. The plan was to enter the palace the night before Coronation Day and reclaim the throne by exposing Koresh before the people. But like all plans, this too would be doused in blood. On the night of the entrance, Elias and Alira donned armor together. Elias's ancient Federation insignia was placed on his shoulder. Alira donned the sapphire helmet inherited from her ancestors. Are you ready? Elias asked as they made their way through the dark hangar toward the ship's ramp. I'm not afraid anymore, Alira said. You're with me. The palace gates burst open at dawn. The people poured into the streets. The broadcasts were jammed. Elias fought on the front lines. With every step, with every shot, something dawned on him. This man wasn't just a bodyguard. He was a leader. As Koresh prepared a final defense in the throne room, Alira entered, walking through hundreds of soldiers. Your reign is over, Koresh. Koresh laughed. Did you come for the throne? Alira shook her head. No, for justice. And Elias, following behind, disarmed Koresh. The crowd was aghast at the sight that spread throughout the hall. The throne had been reclaimed with bloodshed, but the final word hadn't yet been spoken. Throne had been reclaimed. Koresh had been handed over to the Aurelian High Court for trial. The council had been dissolved, and with Alira's popular support, it had been restructured. But the wounds of the war were deep. The galaxy was no longer the galaxy it once was. Queen Alira addressed thousands from the palace's largest balcony. She spoke of a new order, of justice, of transparency. But most people had only one question. Who was the man standing beside her? Elias stood at the Queen's right, a silent but resolute presence. The gleam of his armor seemed to reflect the stars. His presence spoke louder than words. Later that night, Alira summoned him to the private garden. They sat in silence. You know, Elias, she said, I lost many things when I lost the throne, but there is something I gained that is more precious. Elias smiled. What is it? What I heard from you. Elias bowed his head. Can't queens love humans? Alira, the woman corrected. And I love you, Elias Vorn. Stars fell upon them like rain at that moment, and Alira turned to the people before the galaxy. Today I declare to you another truth. This human man is my mate. The hall was silent for a moment. Then a wave of applause and astonishment swept over them. Alira, leader of hundreds of systems, had given her heart to a human, but the galaxy's most beautiful queen had fallen in love with a star warrior, and the galaxy's future was written by the oath they had made together. N.